I mean, imagine stepping into an arena, right? Your opponent's just barking these aggressive commands. The crowd around you is absolutely deafening, and fire is quite literally raining down from the
Oh,
sky.
yeah, it's total chaos.
Exactly. And your strategy, you just stand there. You don't attack, you don't raise your voice, you just wait.
Which is wild. It completely flips our traditional understanding of power on its head.
It really does. Today we are looking at this bizarre set of field notes from the year 2026 that proves why doing absolutely nothing might actually be the most devastating combat strategy ever invented.
Because when we think of strength, we usually picture something explosive. We picture dominance. But the document we're exploring today presents an alternative that is deeply patient, incredibly soft, and entirely unbreakable.
Welcome to today's deep dive. The source material we are looking at is this intensely fascinating character study. It's simply titled Kelly's Pokémon Notes, dated April 16th, 2026.
A really remarkable piece of text.
Truly. And our mission for you listening today is to trace the evolution of this character, Kelly. We're going to follow her from being a quiet, intensely observant child in a secluded town, all the way to becoming a gym leader who radically subverts the very institution she represents.
Right, and even though the setting here is the Pokémon universe, you don't need to be a super fan to get this.
Not at all, because this is fundamentally a masterclass in psychological resilience. It's about setting boundaries, navigating inevitable conflict, and learning how to hold space in a world that is hyper-obsessed with moving fast and crushing the competition.
It really is a survival guide for deeply empathetic people.
Okay, let's unpack this, because we really have to start by looking at her baseline. Kelly's childhood is the polar opposite of the classic hero who rushes out the front door looking for a fight.
Yeah, to understand how Kelly eventually redefines strength, we first have to look at the sheer lack of spectacle in her hometown.
Right.
The notes paint a very specific picture of Verdanturf Town.
Okay.
There are no sprawling urban centers there, no grand stadiums.
Just clean air.
Exactly. Clean air, the scent of wildflowers, and a remarkably slow pace of life. The defining characteristics of this environment are just quiet, growth, and time.
And that environment deeply influences how she interacts with the world. Think about the standard trope for kids in this setting, right?
Oh, they're usually practically vibrating with excitement.
Yes. They want to run into the tall grass, find a wild monster, and start proving their dominance. But Kelly is doing the exact opposite. She lingers.
So she's just watching.
Right. She spends her mornings walking the outskirts of town, just watching things happen. She notices the subtle ways certain plants lean toward the sunlight. She pays attention to how injured wild creatures don't posture aggressively.
They hide.
They hide. Her fundamental drive isn't to win. I mean, she doesn't even want to win. Her drive is to understand.
What's fascinating here is how radical that passive observation actually is when you place it within a culture built entirely on competition.
It's totally subversive.
It really is. From a very young age, Kelly is demonstrating this rare psychological trait. She isn't looking at the ecosystem as a ladder to climb or, a territory to conquer. She's observing systems.
I like how all the pieces fit together.
Precisely. She is watching the causality of nature, how the quality of the soil dictates the health of the leaf, and how the surrounding environment completely dictates behavior. She's building a worldview based on safety rather than aggression.
Which brings us to the day she gets her first partner. And this completely bucks the trend of the grand televised ceremony at a professor's lab.
Oh, it's so low-key.
It's incredibly low-key. Instead, there's just a traveling caretaker passing through Verdanturf. And this caretaker happens to notice Kelly kneeling in the dirt, talking to wilted plants as if they're actually listening to her.
Which is such a striking image.
It is. And based purely on that interaction, the caretaker entrusts Kelly with a small, incredibly shy Chikorita. And the mechanics of how they bond are so counterintuitive.
Right, there's no grand gesture.
No. Chikorita doesn't run up to her. Kelly doesn't throw a Pokeball or issue a command. They literally just stand there and observe each other.
And psychologically speaking, that is the foundation of a secure attachment.
Oh, interesting. How so?
Well, in behavioral psychology, a secure base is what allows for genuine, sustainable growth. Chikorita learns in that very first interaction that Kelly isn't going to force it into a situation it isn't ready for.
She just offers her presence. It really reminds me of sitting with a friend who's in distress.
That's a great analogy.
Like sometimes the most powerful thing you can do for someone isn't offering a quick fix or a 10-step action plan. It's simply offering your silent, steady presence, just being there.
Exactly. And their bond deepens not through battling other trainers, but through restoring small, damaged patches of land together.
Right, the notes mention she notices these micro-expressions of need.
Yeah, a drooping leaf, a slight shift in posture. This type of active observation requires an immense amount of discipline. It's a very deliberate choice to slow down and let the Pokemon grow stronger, but not necessarily faster or louder.
But, you can't stay in the quiet, protected garden forever.
Unfortunately not.
Eventually, the external world forces its way in, and this introduces a massive amount of friction into Kelly's life. It basically shatters her worldview and forces a really painful evolution.
Yeah, we hit the primary catalyst of conflict here, which is the construction of the Verdanturf Tunnel.
Right, the digging project.
Exactly. It's this massive industrial project that kicks up dust, pollutes the clean air, and actively disrupts the delicate ecosystem of Verdanturf that Kelly has spent her entire life studying and nurturing.
It is a brutal wake-up call for her. The text notes this harsh realization hitting her, that nature isn't always naturally protected, and simply caring about something isn't enough to keep it safe.
Sometimes the world pushes back.
It pushes back hard. And in response to that friction, Chikorita actually steps forward to battle the construction workers' Pokémon.
Yeah.
Not to win a badge and not for glory, but strictly to protect the space.
Which ushers in what the source calls the Bayleaf era.
Right, the reluctant battler stage.
Yeah. Chikorita evolves, and Kelly actually leaves her hometown. She goes out into the wider world to learn how other regions manage their land and handle conflict.
But out there, she runs into much harsher trainers. She runs into careless people who view everything as a resource to be exploited.
People who don't respect the slow pace she's used to.
Exactly. But wait, I have a real problem with this next phase of her journey, though.
Oh.
Yeah, I have to push back on her motivations here. If her entire identity is built around being a peaceful, non-violent caretaker, why doesn't she just walk away from these aggressive trainers?
That's a fair question.
Right. Stepping into an arena to fight them feels like a massive hypocritical compromise. Isn't she just playing their game and betraying her core philosophy? Here's where it gets really interesting, because the document explicitly addresses this emotional shift.
It does. It might look like a compromise on the surface, but it's actually a necessary maturation of her philosophy. She shifts from overgiving to learning limits.
Okay, break that down for me.
Think about a seawall on a coastline. A seawall doesn't fight the ocean, it doesn't get angry at the waves, and it certainly doesn't try to destroy the water.
All right, it just stands there.
It simply establishes a firm, unbreakable line where the water cannot pass. If you're trying to protect a sanctuary but you have no walls, your caretaking means absolutely nothing, because the first storm that comes along will bulldoze right over you.
Oh, wow.
Kelly realizes that setting a boundary isn't an act of aggression. Setting a frame boundary is actually the highest form of care.
That makes so much sense. But how does she actually enforce those boundaries in a combat setting without, destroying her own ideals?
Yeah.
Because she doesn't suddenly become this aggressive, damage-dealing warlord.
Not at all. She completely shifts her mechanical approach to conflict. She stops prioritizing offensive damage entirely.
She uses status moves, right?
Yes, she relies heavily on status moves.
Huh.
Let's look at the mechanics of this. Instead of commanding her bailiff to tackle or bite an opponent, she prioritizes protection. She uses moves like reflect or light screen.
Which literally put up walls.
Mechanically, yeah. These moves create literal barriers of energy on the field that drastically cut down the impact of any incoming attack. And she uses Leech Seed, which plants a root on the opponent that slowly saps their energy over time.
Effectively forcing the pace of the battle to slow down. So she is essentially weaponizing defense. She is putting up emotional and physical shields.
Precisely. She figures out that if she doesn't stand her ground, she can't protect anything. And she also utilizes moves like Synthesis, where her Pokémon literally pauses in the middle of a chaotic battle to absorb sunlight and heal itself.
That is wild.
It is. She's teaching her opponents a frustrating lesson. You cannot rush me, and you cannot overwhelm me.
She realizes that battles are not inherently about causing harm. Sometimes, forcing a hostile person to stop, exhaust themselves against your defenses, and deal with your boundaries is the only way to teach them how to listen.
Exactly. It's a profound internal realization.
That reframing of conflict is so incredibly useful. Conflict isn't always destruction. Sometimes it's just enforced listening. And because she embraces this very intentional defensive style of conflict, she begins attracting a specific type of team.
This brings her into the Nurse Kelly era.
Yes. Her Pokémon roster stops looking like a traditional combat squad and starts looking like a highly specialized emotional toolkit.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the Pokémon she surrounds herself with represent the psychological chapters she is actively working through.
Let's talk about the specific additions to her team, starting with Blissey.
Ah, Blissey. The document calls this the heart lesson.
Right. The notes detail how Kelly encounters Blissey working in a chaotic, overrun Pokémon Center. And Blissey is essentially running itself ragged, trying to heal every single injury that comes through the door.
Taking on the pain of every trainer until it is completely exhausted.
Blissey is suffering from classic enmeshment.
Total enmeshment.
And the lesson Kelly learns, and teaches Blissey, is that care without strict boundaries leads directly to burnout. The phrase used in the text here is learning to hold space, not carry everything.
That is such a vital distinction between true empathy and destructive enmeshment.
It really is. And for you listening right now, think about how easy it is to fall into that trap in your own daily life. If you consider yourself an empathetic person or, you're the designated problem solver in your friend group or your workplace, it's so easy to act like a limitless sponge.
Oh, absolutely.
You absorb everyone else's stress, their drama, their tight deadlines. You essentially put their backpack of heavy rocks onto your own shoulders. But Blissey's lesson is realizing that you can sit with someone in their distress, you can offer support, but you absolutely cannot carry the weight of their world for them.
Because if you do, you both drown.
Exactly.
And as she masters this, her team expands to reflect these mature strategies, like when she nurtures a neglected, wilting oddish.
Yes, she takes an immense amount of time to rehabilitate it.
Right, until it finally evolves into a blossom. And this edition represents the blooming self.
It functions as a daily reminder to Kelly that growth doesn't have to be explosive. The text says, I don't need to be loud to be beautiful.
Which is such a quiet, profound rebellion in a world obsessed with making noise.
Totally. Then she adds Lapras, representing the weight of empathy. Lapras is this massive, incredibly gentle creature that guides her across deep waters. But the crucial detail is how Lapras interacts with Kelly during her darkest moments.
It doesn't try to fix it.
No, it doesn't try to cheer her up or distract her. It just sits with her in heavy silence. Mechanically and metaphorically, Lapras proves that you can possess immense emotional depth without being overwhelmed by it.
Sitting in silence during a difficult moment is a deeply advanced emotional skill.
It really is.
And finally, there is Tugektis, which represents peace, not avoidance.
Because Tugekis evolves from a Tugeki, right?
Exactly. And the specific evolutionary mechanic for this species is pure trust. It requires high friendship, completely independent of battle experience.
Wow.
This edition is the ultimate proof of her character arc. It demonstrates that Kelly isn't just hiding from the harsh realities of the world. She hasn't run away from conflict. She has figured out how to transform it into something constructive.
And the sum of these parts turns her into a totally unique figure out on the road. Her reputation completely solidifies. But not in the way trainers usually get famous.
Right. No one is talking about her devastating critical hits.
No. People don't remember her for a flashy victory. They remember that after a battle, she immediately pulled out medical supplies and helped their Pokémon heal. They remember the bizarre, calming pace of interacting with her.
She becomes a mediator.
Yes. She creates emotional safety out in the wild. She is quite literally altering the psychological temperature of every single person who crosses her path.
She transcends the role of a wandering lass and becomes an essential stabilizing pillar of the community. She serves as a safe harbor between dangerous routes.
She isn't just surviving the world's aggressive systems anymore.
No, she is actively dismantling them on an interpersonal level.
Which brings us to the climax of this entire journey. Her absolute mastery of her internal boundaries and her external environment sets the stage for a final evolution.
The Meganium era.
Yes, she is ready to step fully into a position of authority, but she is going to do it without compromising a single drop of her gentleness.
Her Bailey finally evolves into Meganium, and the transition is distinctly lacking in theatrics.
No blinding explosion.
No dramatic roaring. There is merely a profound shift in presence. Kelly realizes that she is no longer just an assistant on the sidelines of someone else's story.
She stops introducing herself as a traveling caretaker.
Right. She finally realizes, I am something.
That internal shift in confidence is immediately mirrored by a very strange encounter with a mythical Pokémon named Shaman.
Which is such a poetic choice by the author of these notes.
It really is. Now, Shaman is tiny. It resembles a small hedgehog with flowers growing out of it. It's frequently overlooked in a world of giant dragons and massive elemental beasts, but it possesses the ability to instantly purify corrupted land and restore entire fields of flowers.
Shaman is the perfect mirror for Kelly. When they meet, Shaman doesn't challenge her to a test of combat strength.
It doesn't posture or threaten her at all.
It simply looks at her and recognizes an equal. It sees a creature with immense, quiet power.
And in that moment of mutual recognition, Kelly has her ultimate epiphany. The notes say she realizes, I already am what I was trying to be.
She doesn't need to conform to the world's definition of a powerful trainer.
Exactly. So she takes that actualization and she returns home to Verdanturf. But she doesn't return as the quiet, uncertain kid or even just Kenny's sister. She returns to establish herself as the town's grass-type gym leader.
This raises an important question, doesn't it?
What's that?
What does it actually mean to challenge a deeply entrenched institution from the inside? Because a Pokémon gym is, by its very definition, a place of conquest.
Right, it's an arena.
It's a structural choke point designed to test a challenger's combat superiority and aggression.
And Kelly completely subverts that entire framework. She refuses to call the building a gym. She officially registers it as a sanctuary.
And she absolutely refuses the title of gym leader.
Yes, insisting on being called a caretaker of growth. And the experience that challengers have when they walk through her doors is mind-bending.
Oh, think about the psychological dissonance this creates for a challenger. You have a hyper-competitive 10-year-old walking through the doors with a fire-breathing Charizard, fully expecting a brawl.
Their adrenaline is pumping, they are shouting commands, and they are ready to destroy whatever's in front of them.
And instead of meeting that aggression with aggression, Kelly just sets up her screens.
She uses leech seed, she heals.
She simply refuses to escalate. The challenger starts burning through their strongest, most destructive moves, and Kelly just gently absorbs them and regenerates.
Eventually, the challenger just exhausts themselves. The adrenaline wears off. They're left standing in a quiet, sunlit room, forced to experience the agonizingly slow pace of the battle.
They're gently forced to be patient, present, and intentional.
Kelly's entire strategy asks them a silent, infuriating question. Can you care, even when it is incredibly inconvenient?
She causes them to defeat themselves through their own impatience. She takes an institution designed for combat and reshapes it into a place of healing, a place of enforced reflection.
It's incredible.
She proves that you don't necessarily have to tear an institution down to the studs to change its purpose. If your boundaries are unbreakable and your presence carries enough gravity, you can warp the very nature of the space around you.
So what does this all mean? We've traced this incredible arc from a quiet kid who just wanted to understand the soil, to a reluctant battler learning the painful necessity of boundaries, to finally becoming a caretaker of growth who completely dictates the emotional pace of everyone around her.
It's a journey of quiet rebellion.
It really is. I want to look at the core takeaway that Kelly actually writes down in her notes. It's a line that perfectly encapsulates everything we've discussed today. Strength isn't how fast you win, it's how gently you endure.
How gently you endure. That is beautiful.
She proves that soft strength, when backed by ironclad boundaries, is utterly unbreakable.
I would gently challenge you, listening right now, to take Kelly's lens and apply it to the friction in your own life. Where are you rushing into the tall grass to fight battles that you really have no business fighting?
Yeah.
Where are you choosing aggression when you really should be stepping back and observing the mechanics of the soil? And perhaps most importantly, where do you need to stop carrying everything for everyone else and start setting the seawalls that allow you to simply hold space safely?
That is the real work. And I want to leave you with one final lingering thought to mull over as you go about your day. It's an idea that isn't explicitly answered in the text, but it builds on everything we've talked about.
Okay, let's hear it.
We live in a modern world that is relentlessly optimized for speed. Everything around us demands endless efficiency, constant hustle, and an aggressive drive to crush the competition. In an environment like that, it's choosing to move slowly, choosing to be profoundly patient, and stubbornly prioritizing emotional care actually the most rebellious, disruptive thing you could possibly do?
That is a phenomenal question.
Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. Take a deep breath today, endure gently, and keep learning.